Advent. Advent. Wonderful time. It's a tumultuous time, isn't it? It's a tumultuous time that we live in. And you know what? Every generation has said that. I have said to my children, oh, I'm so glad that I'm not raising kids today. And you know what? My parents said that to Doris and me. Oh, we're so glad. It would be so much more challenging. Because it seems that it gets more challenging all of the time. And every generation, I believe, at least since written history, believes that this is the most tumultuous time that could be. And certainly they did in the times of Matthew, who was writing to people who some of whom maybe remembered, were there, may have been there at the time of the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus. Others had certainly heard about it firsthand. And now, there was the persecution that was going on. And hey, it had been a while and he said he was coming back. So when's he coming back? And Matthew doesn't give them a date. In fact, he says, nobody knows. That's what Jesus says. No one knows. Not even Jesus as he walked the earth knew. Not even Jesus as he walked the earth. But this was a tumultuous time and people were ready for Jesus to return. I remember my coming of age, college, those kinds of years. It was a tumultuous time in our culture. We were fighting about races. We were fighting about wars. There was a president that was going to be, taken out of office for dirty tricks. And we baby boomers have said, well, that's our parents' generation. We're certainly not going to screw it up like that. Look at us today. We're right back there. But because of that, that's the time that I was in Bible college. And so you got to believe that this end time stuff was a hot topic. One of the best sellers was The Late Great Planet Earth by Hal, what's his name? Anyway, he made a lot of money on that. And a lot of the stuff he said is come and gone, and we're still here. But that was a great conversation. There was a great guy at school by the name of Matt. And he was a wonderful man and a good friend to many. And his roommate played an awful trick on him one night. We were there at Bible school, and the roommate said, hey, I'm going to set Matt's clock so that he's really getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, thinking he's normally getting up for breakfast and then to go to class. And somehow he got all of us guys into it so that Matt got up and it looked kind of normal. Although I don't know why he would have thought it would look normal to see me standing there at the bathroom sink shaving, because I would have never been up before breakfast in those days, not even for the early class. But Matt gets up, he chats with people, he talks with people. Roommate walks him across campus, start to walk across campus to that early breakfast. Roommate says, I forgot something, goes back to his room. And Matt gets to the cafeteria at the Bible college there, and it's dark. And there's not even any cooks around to begin to prepare the meal. And everything around the Bible college is just dark. And Matt would tell us later, he said, I really thought Jesus had come and he'd taken all of you and he left me. For a moment anyway. Now the amazing thing is Matt forgave all of us, but that's the kind of stir there was in those days. And sometimes you hear it even in our most recent history with the movies Left Behind. You realize in the text that we just read, it's not about who's left behind. Their people were taken, didn't know where they went, but it's for the people that were left behind that the message is. Because one is grinding and working in the fields and the other one's gone. That means there's more work for you to do while Christ is here. We believe that Christ is coming. We celebrate that Christ has come into our life with our baptism, with his acceptance of us, with our acceptance of his grace. And we do believe that there will come that day that Jesus will come again, and that there will be total and complete peace, and there will be total and complete harmony. But until that day, Matthew, and Jesus says in Matthew, live every day like it's that last day. Live every day receiving God's grace and mercy as if this is your last day. Live every day laying yourself out for the service of Christ as if this were your last day. Because that's the kind of urgency that we're called to live with. We live in the in-between. We live in between of receiving God's grace and mercy for our life, for our eternal life. We live in between that and the expectation of what will come someday. But in the meantime, Christ comes to us in everyday ways, every day of our life. And Christ uses us, whether you know it or not, to come to others in everyday ways throughout life. Christ comes to us in the child who is helpless and brings us joy. Christ comes to us in the elderly who's in need of assistance but also has some wisdom for us. Christ comes to us in the hungry. Christ comes to us in the needy. Christ comes to us with the people who have whatever issues that they might have in our lives. Christ comes to us. How has Christ come to you lately? Who has God used in your life this day or these recently? I've shared this before. You may remember it. I live my life for two people. Well, I trust that I live it for Christ, and I live it for Doug Haugen, but I live my life for my cousin Dave. Because without my cousin Dave, who grew up my best friend, I don't have this faith. I'm not doing what I'm doing. I'm not married to who I'm married to. It's because of his encouragement and his not giving up on me, of me continuing to poke and prod me along, that I really came to a full acceptance that Jesus had accepted me. Dave died very tragically when we were both 33. And so the rest of my life, I'm fulfilling his life as well as mine. He was Jesus to me.